Testing, testing. Just getting started in a few minutes there. We've got a few of you already arrived. If I could just get you just to make a chat comment there, if you can hear me correctly before I get started. We have a few controls down the left-hand side of your page there where you can click to chat, view the chat log, click to ask a question or raise your hand. I will be getting to questions once we've wrapped up the content for this evening. So I'll get to all of them at the end, but you're able to chat at any time, and I'll refer back to that with sort of admin or audio-visual problems, things of that nature. There are some familiar controls within the video interface for you to start having a look at. Yeah, probably the one of most note is the little cog down the bottom right-hand corner to adjust the resolution of the video. You can turn that up or down depending on your connection. If you're finding problems with pixelation, etc., you can change that resolution. So I'd love to hear from a few of you. If you can click on the chat button there in the top left-hand corner of the screen and just enter in, yes, I can hear you okay. Thank you, Leith. I appreciate that. That's one person. Hello, Emily. Nice to see you here. Thank you for letting me know, and good evening. At least two of you can now hear, so that's good to know. I'll pop myself back on mute. We'll get set to go right on 8 and get stuck right into it. Actually, while you're there, just let me know if you can see that slide there. That should be a red introductory page there, Property Investment Event as the title. So I'd love to hear if you can see that as well, if that's possible. Good evening, everybody. My name's Jacob Field, founder of Ripe House. Thank you for arriving tonight so promptly, and a few of you getting here early and confirming that you can hear and see the slide there correctly. There has been quite a lot of you arrive just in the last minute or so. Yeah, just for you to know, I have covered off on to the early arrivers, but there are a few controls down the left-hand side. Top one is click to chat. You can click on that now and view the chat log that we've been going through. The one below that is asking a question, which I won't open until the end. I'll be checking back the chat intermittently for issues. And the one below is raising your hand. So if there's a really pressing issue, raise your hand and that will pop up in front of me. I have Isabel here tonight helping me with the running of the event. Look, just another confirmation. If you can see me, see the slide there in front, property investment event, and hear me correctly, that'll be great. Yeah, tonight the general run of proceedings for my webcast event, I do have a fair portion, half an hour, dedicated to catch up, sort of covering off on common ground to get to a certain point where we can move forward within the second half of the webcast. Tonight is very reactionary. It's not going to be covering off on a lot of that base level of knowledge. I will send a link through after the webcast tonight if you did want to catch up and view that our recent webcast that was 2 weeks ago, which really does cover off on all of the basics. Tonight, that's going to be assumed knowledge. We're going to be really moving forward in a couple of very specific elements of purchasing property, especially purchasing property in interstate or unfamiliar suburbs and areas. So, yes, skipping right to the meat, and that first piece of content that we're going to be covering is assessing the condition of a remote property. So a property you're not familiar with, you're not going to be able to drive through, you're not going to be able to go to the open home. What resources, information, how we can assess images and descriptive text to assess the condition of the property, and making sure that condition is assessed like for like against other properties in the suburb. Every suburb is different and has a different standard of property. Next, after that, we're assessing the condition of the property, firstly, as a first part of the process, to then find relevant comparables in a similar condition, similar standard of property, and with those comparables, we're going to be assessing fair market value. So that's the second concept I'm really going to be trying to focus on tonight. Okay, all of those, the first two steps are then moving towards the third step, which is allowing us to have a very firm idea of fair market value in mind, and then we're going to be looking at the condition and other elements of information we can pull about that property to leverage an attempt to negotiate and buy below market value. So we can't buy below market value until we have established fair market value. So it's going to be going through those three steps. Tonight I've been talking with a few investors as part of business as usual at Ripe House. I do one-on-ones with individuals. A couple have popped up today. There's been a lot of focus on Queensland and obviously New South Wales in the last year or so. A couple of investors have come through looking at South Australia. Okay, so I'm going to be using South Australia as my examples tonight. I've sort of dug a little bit deeper and found a few suburbs that have a lot of potential there. I'll be using that for some fresh case studies, some fresh content, and really looking for some great potential in South Australia. So I'll be relating all that back to South Australian markets tonight. Yeah, if I could ask, I will jump in. Can I just ask, just to get a bit of a feel for, I've noticed a few of you have are well-known names and current community members here at Ripe House, so hello to you. A few of other names I'm not familiar with, so if I could just get a few of you to mention how you've come across the webcast, where you've come from, the context. Are you a current investor or looking to just start out? And that can sort of help me to gauge and adapt the content on the fly with a few of these unfamiliar names. So just while you send those comments through, that will be muchly appreciated. I'll jump to the next slide. Yeah, just setting a bit of ground, a bit of ground information, base information. I'm Jacob Field and I founded Ripe House in 2011. I'm a DIY property investor, so I've always given priority and focus onto developing my knowledge and understanding a network around me to really empower myself to purchase properties individually, without paying a buyer's agent or other property professionals. I've really focused on my own education to be able to do that. And that usually generally means looking at the highest capital growth potential across Australia at any one time, arming myself with information and techniques to be able to buy those successfully for below market value, and then move forward in my strategy. So thanks for jumping in there, Scott. You've come tonight through Facebook, so welcome. This is part of business as usual, I suppose, at Ripe House, as far as these webcasts are a great weekly event to really get a lot of content over, and we focus on some different investment problems that you might face each week. So welcome. Yeah, my investment journey has, I'm actually from Tasmania. I've recently moved back to Tasmania last year to be closer to family with my young children. I own property in Tassie, still through regional New South Wales, Sydney, Newcastle, just north of Newcastle. It's allowed me to remove myself from the 9 to 5. And I bought my first property at 19 and was able to remove myself from the 9 to 5 just after my 30th birthday. I love property investment. It's what I'm really passionate about. I love talking to other property investors and really, thinking and strategizing and networking and sharing information and experience. It really what I really enjoy. So Ripe House is a really nice synergy between my experience and what I like to do. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you for all jumping in there, Ira and Leith, who's a familiar name. Just going to start moving forward. Yeah, there's a whole backlog of regular content, research and learnings that we put out. So without sort of going into too much detail, you can find all of that at ripehouse.com.au/learning. All 3 resources in there around our blog, free buyer's guide to investment property, which is a really nice publication that we put out a few months ago around what information to look at, what are the major catches that you need to look out for as an investor in the market, and then how to look for information and use that information to negotiate with the agent. It's a really nice introduction to that. Another key publication is Know Your Property Strategy. So it's knowing what you're trying to achieve with your next property. In my investment journey in the last few, 10 or plus years, I've gone in lots of different directions. I've overcompensated. I now have a pretty firm set of requirements I look for with each individual property. Just putting on pause there, Guy, with your picture quality. There is a button in the bottom right-hand corner of the video applet area. It's a cog. You can click on that and change the resolution of your image. So let me know if that works for you. Yeah, so property is a journey, and you're always going in different directions. It's all about learning, but at each individual property purchase, I find it's very important to know what your primary strategy is, what you're trying to achieve with this individual property, and making sure you execute on that strategy end to end. So when I say that, it's not just finding the correct suburb that's going to match your needs, whether it's capital growth or outstanding capital growth or outstanding cash flow. That's only the first step in the equation. It's knowing how to find its street in that suburb that's going to really amplify the positives within the suburb, and then individual properties that are also going to amplify the positives around the street and the suburb. So that's the publication really does break that down for you at those 3 levels. Another key publication, which we're producing the Q3 report coming up very soon, is the Q2 Best of the Bunch Suburb Hotspot Report. So we have a huge array of information at Ripe House around property prices, previous property prices, every for sale listing, a huge portion of current for sale listings across Australia. With all that information, we're able to map it to location, distance to amenities, distance to public housing, and we're able to find quarterly the states, regions and suburbs that have the most growth potential. So that's business as usual. The other 3 publications that you can jump into through the Learning Centre and get up to speed. I think it's all about using information. Information is power. It's about making sure you're clear on your own strategy, and it's about opening up your catchment area and feeling confident in opening your catchment area right across Australia to find the absolute key markets to perform against your personal strategy. So that's what it's all about. Tonight is going to be, as I mentioned, focusing on how to assess condition of property that may be situated remote to you. You might not be actually doing an open home or drive-through or physical inspection of the property. How to assess the condition of that property so you can then find and source comparables that are actually comparable. Then you can assess fair market value for that property, and then you can negotiate and set that as a benchmark to negotiate under the fair market value that you've assessed. So what I like to do, I talk as far as, I'm getting to the slide now, I do apologise, 3 core conditions. We can't get too complex. You know, if we had a full hour to digest the property in all different scenarios and really inspect it very closely physically, we could get down to a very minute degree of accuracy, 1 in 10th, and you can compare properties, very intimately in that way. But that's not scalable. We need to have a process which we can repeat for quite a lot of properties every day, effectively, efficiently, and get to very close to a good result. That way we can spread our wings a little bit further. We can operate and find the absolute best deals in a lot of markets at once, or particularly in one market, and become an expert at that market, and process these properties quickly to get down to a shortlist. And then for individual shortlist properties, we're then going to obviously perform a full appraisal, talk to the agent, and then go down the further steps of our due diligence process. So it's at the start looking at assessing property condition into 3 categories: poor, average, and good. Not getting too complex. And then once we've got it down to a shortlist, we'll really nail things at that point. But at this level, poor condition in a low socioeconomic area is completely different to poor condition in a high socioeconomic area. So it's really about knowing the suburb and knowing those 3 levels of property condition, knowing and being able to assess that quickly. So that requires you to familiarise yourself with a few properties, and I'm sort of going to talk in a moment about some sort of frameworks we can work to. So it does find you, once you've assessed the condition of a property, then you look at individual comparables, and we have to then assess those comparables and the condition of those. So it does need to be something we get quite quick and good at. But once we might start seeing the same comparables coming up for property after property, and we get to have a really good feel for the area. So it's not too daunting. Yeah, just skipping forward. Excuse me there. Okay, so first case study, or first point really I'd like to illustrate, and it's probably not a case study, it's just a point I'm trying to illustrate, is a 3-bedroom house. This is a very extreme example in Mossman, is very different to a 3-bedroom house in Mount Druitt. So I've just picked some images. You might see a commonality in the images I have selected. Street appeal, forward-facing image of the property. How does it appeal on first impressions? Very important. Assessing that into 3 categories: poor, average, or good. Layout, internal neutrality of colours and flooring. Presentation of kitchen, bathroom, floor layout, added extras, and size of block and outdoor facilities. So all things you're looking at, and obviously these are 2 pretty run-of-the-mill properties. One of them's in Mossman, where there's huge majority of properties are ocean frontage with pools and very nice spec, and the other's in Mount Druitt, where this is actually probably an average property in Mount Druitt. That is what we're assessing. We can't assess one versus the other and look for accuracy. We're going to have a feel for that suburb and then divide properties that we come across into those 3 categories. So that's just to illustrate that point at a very extreme scale. Yeah, as I'm saying, let's sort of start. It's got to be back to you as an individual. It's got to be a process that you're comfortable with. If you're a very methodical person, or if you're a very emotive person, it's got to be something that's very comfortable for you. So getting back to those 3 condition levels, with the data that we have and the majority of suburbs that we've sampled it across, we've run tests and performed research. Generally, if you divide it up into 3/3, poor condition properties equate roughly to the lower quartile in price of the suburb. Average condition properties are obviously in the median or average property price, and good condition properties, they generally relate to the upper quartile price. So we're removing all the outliers, the very, very poor qualities, or obviously the land or whatever that might be, and then also the extremely high spec homes. We're removing that from the bell curve, and we're just focusing on that core quartile pricing, and that roughly relates to these 3/3 in condition. So that's how it will sort of work. And when we start researching actual numbers, we relate that back to quartile pricing, and there's a very nice comparison between the 2. So that's why we're doing it into quarters. So a number of things I look at images, at an image level to start with. We can do all this online. We can see the individual images that the agent has used to demonstrate the property. First thing I look at is street appeal and outside presentation of the property. Is it poor, average, and good compared to other properties in the suburb? I will be going into actual, detailed examples and things I look for in a moment, and we'll actually do some real life investigation. But at the moment, I'm just setting the scene. So, kitchen amenities: is it completely unrenovated, original condition, 40-year-old kitchen with stainless steel top and all those lovely things, or is it 20 years old or 15 years old, very tidy, still older, or is it brand new? In a high socioeconomic area, is it marble finishings with very high spec white goods, completely custom kitchen as an upper end, or is it average to low condition, which is still compressed stone bench tops and reasonably high spec, but that would still be into poor or average condition. So it really does need to change per suburb. So bathroom amenities: is it poor, unrenovated, average, tidy, or good, renovated? Definitely one thing I rate into the poor, average, and good scale is the presentation of the property, how it's been marketed and presented by the agent. Has there been a tenant there at the current time of the for sale listing, and is there really controversial furnishings throughout the property? Feature walls and blue and pink, and the property's really not positioned as well as it could be. Is it compromised? I do look at that, and I do assess that on a poor, average, or good scale. Interior fit out, paint. For low socioeconomic areas, you can't really get better than just white walls, floating floorboards or polished floorboards. Very simple, very effective. If a property is presented like that, you can't really do any better than that in low socioeconomic areas. So that's actually positioned in good condition, even though it's very basic, very white neutral walls and polished floorboards. If it had 1970s carpet with funny off-white or yellow walls, or whatever the individual colour is, it will be presented poorly, and that will also obviously be affected in the presentation and inspection of the property. Extras: I basically categorise this all into one, and this is, I'll jump in a minute, it is related to regional context, but working with a lot of individuals in Brisbane, you're looking at extras. So is a property brick? I might move it up into good condition if it's brick, as opposed to weatherboard or fibro, etc. That would be my three ranges. High set, low set would be my poor and good scale if I'm looking at that type of property. If it's an apartment, if it's got garage storage or not, would be poor or good condition. I'm looking at the range, and on each of these elements I'm assessing poor or good condition and trying to work out which is which. Block size, layout, floor plan: is it splittable? These are all positives or negatives, dependent on the type of property to put it into that scale. You can go through and you can formulate a list of these individual elements that might be relevant to the type of property you're looking at. Give each element a 1 to 2 or a 3 rating. You can add them up and average them. You can do this formally, informally. You can get a feel, and generally now, once I'm aware and quite comfortable with a suburb, I'm literally just looking at the key images and can very quickly assess the condition of the property. So it's about learning the process, getting good at the process, and repeating it very quickly and efficiently each day as part of your due diligence process. Because if we're processing these properties and suburbs effectively, we can increase our catchment area to 3 or 4 very high capital growth fundamental or potential suburbs. We can become experts at those very easily, and we can compete in the market against buyers agents and property professionals. We can operate on that level where we can actually purchase below market in markets with a lot of interest from those buyers agent elements. So that's what we're trying to do. If we are looking at a market with a lot of growth potential, that's what is going to be present in that market, and that's one of the reasons why Brisbane's got some great fundamentals at the moment, some outstanding fundamentals. In our Q2 report, it was the highest rated state. Logan City and Northern Quadrants of Brisbane are outstanding at the moment. Northern Quadrant of Brisbane especially, it's quite mature in its growth cycle. You've got a huge amount of buyers agent and interstate and professional investment developer and also developer interest in those suburbs. Very competitive. Days on market is low. We can assess condition and we can find comparables very easily, but it's difficult to then buy below. So that's why we're focusing on South Australia tonight as an example of of estate and regions in South Australia that do have a lot of upside and potential in the short term. But days on market are out towards 3 and 4 months. So they're still in the earlier stages of the recovery and part of the cycle. Days on market are staying to shorten in a lot of cases. Sales volumes are increasing, but you're a lot earlier in that recovery. So it's more of a buyer's market still. And you've got the opportunity to assess condition very clearly, find comparables, and then you've got a lot of scope to negotiate and buy under market value from what we can assess. So there's a lot more opportunity in South Australia at the moment. That's why we're looking and focusing on that tonight to do that. So just to also be clear, probably still a lot more upside in Queensland, but I'm just, for the purposes of this illustration, using South Australia to illustrate the importance of using information to buy below market. So I'll just move forward. Okay, so I'm just going to do a really quick analysis of what poor condition, average condition, and good condition means for 3 socioeconomic ranges. I've picked 3 suburbs to use as examples in South Australia. Going back a few steps, I really highly regard and rate the work of Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au. I think the level of detail he goes into in his reports is second to none. You know, if you purchase any of his reports, you'll have 10 pages of information around a suburb that he has extensively researched and recommended. As part of some of those reports, the sales volume price index report, a few markets within South Australia really rated quite highly. So I'm going to be focusing on some of those markets tonight. Yeah, definitely, if you're interested in those markets, talk with someone like Terry and potentially, you know, purchase those individual reports for more information. But I have then seconded that data and recommendation with the metrics we're getting out of Ripe House as far as sales volume increasing, rent per week increasing, to find markets that are most likely to increase in capital growth. So once again, for those new listeners tonight, definitely check out the Know Your Property Strategy ebook. It goes into a lot of detail about how we can potentially look at current buy indicators in the market to make a suburb more likely, or indicate that a suburb is more likely to have short-term capital growth. We can look at the cause and the effect. If we can see the effects in the market at the moment, we're almost not really worried about what the cause was because we've seen the buy indicator. So it goes in a lot of detail about that theory. Tonight, I'm using 3 examples that rate very highly as far as their capital growth potential in South Australia. Daveron Park, low socioeconomic area, under 200k purchase price. Campbelltown, which is around 400k purchase price, you know, very middle of the rung property in Adelaide, and the high socioeconomic area of Bel Air in the hills in Adelaide. A lot of larger properties, a lot of real high spec homes, architecturally designed homes, very large elements throughout the property, entertaining, pool, that type of thing. So definitely 3 different types of suburb. I'm not sure if the images there are clear enough for everybody. We'll send the slides out after the event. I'm looking at street appeal. Low socioeconomic area, you've got boarded up windows, you've got blinds, you've got blankets out the front, you've got no fence, you've got no lawn, you've got you know, cars in the yard, you've got all of these type of things that would really indicate a property. It's actually on the market and it's been presented like that as the bottom of the condition scale in a low socioeconomic area. Street appeal for an average socioeconomic area, it's reasonably tidy. There is a bit of pride in presentation. The bottom of the rung in average area will still be reasonably presented generally from street appeal side of things and first impressions. In higher socioeconomic areas, poor condition I would usually define as something that's 30 years old, architecturally designed 30 years ago, however it's dated. Hasn't really been updated. It's probably got really amazing bones and quite large proportions. Floor pan might be a little bit iffy and needs to be modernised. But a poor condition property, generally you won't see properties going to market in high socioeconomic areas that are in absolute, you know, tear down or unrenovated condition inside. It's generally been modernised in some ways, but and that sort of is applied to the exterior. High socioeconomic areas, you're really looking for the dated street appeal and first impression. So you can see the kitchen there on the left in low socioeconomic areas. It's really, you know, it's just a bench top, 40 years old. You've got lino on the floors. You've got a standalone oven. You've got, you know, very low spec, very low condition, very poorly presented by the agent. They're all things that are counting against it and pushing it down to that poor category. In average there, you've got tidy is how I'd categorise average condition, average socioeconomic areas in poor condition. They're tidy. They might be controversially presented with funny wall colourings, funny furnishings, funny furniture, original condition but tidy kitchens and bathrooms, and then once again in the high socioeconomic areas, you've got funny floor plans. You've got a 1970s feature wall there. You've got reasonably well presented bathrooms that might be 10 years old and had a refresh. Definitely passable, but definitely on the lower scale within the area. So just a bit of an illustration there of what to look for, how it can change amongst different socioeconomic areas. Moving forward, let me know if everyone can see those images okay. If you can't, yeah, definitely probably jump in the slides or potentially have a look at the resolution. What I've moved into now is average condition properties in these three areas. In the lower socioeconomic areas, you've got tidy, pride in presentation. You'll have a front fence, potentially some manicuring in the garden. It may have been somewhat rendered. You've got probably 10, 15-year-old kitchen bathroom type examples, and are generally tidy. You've probably, the listing has been compromised somewhat by not being, spend the 5K reno on before sale. So you've still got that scope to improve. You've got floor coverings that might need to be modernised or slight touch up in paint and refresh through that department. That's average condition in low socioeconomic areas. Average condition in average suburbs, you're talking 5-year-old brick or quite well presented. A lot of pride in presentation, and it's come to the market in a very fit state. You've got reasonable layouts. You've got neutral colours throughout. You've got pretty standard but tidy and modern kitchen bathroom combos. And then average condition in high socioeconomic areas. You've got grand proportions. You're talking within the last 5 years. You're talking reasonably high spec. And these sort of rungs, and I think this suburb, the first property I showed you was on the market for 550. This one here's on the market for 1.1, and the next property I'm going to show you is 1.6. So it's definitely a very different scale that you're looking at based on the area. Jumping into the next slide, so this is in good condition. Low socioeconomic areas, you still might not get the renovated kitchen bathroom, but you're getting very tidy presentation. They're sort of really kicking as many goals as they can to get the most for this property without spending or renovating it before sale in a lot of cases. Still providing you some scope potentially to do that final kitchen bathroom reno. Don't want to over capitalise, but you're looking at very well presented, generally owner-occupier stock in good condition in low socioeconomic areas. Average socioeconomic areas, you are looking at the top part of these suburbs, so sometimes you have, the architectural design elements, something a little bit unusual, generally brand new fit outs, larger proportions, and obviously this one here on the right is high socioeconomic area, so, absolute standout. You've got amazing views of Adelaide City in the background, you've got amazing feature bathrooms, entertaining areas, large pools, and all those type of things. So definitely, I'm just trying to set the scene there. Prasad, thank you, has mentioned that he can switch the resolution to lower if the video freezes. So it is built on the Google Hangouts platform. So the actual streaming video is through that platform, which is generally, I would say, stable. It's going in a very high res broadcast, and then you can turn that down if needed. Yeah, I'm really trying to set the scene now and really sort of make the point that it definitely is related to the suburb. And one point that I'd like to make now is the regional sensitivities. Working with individual investors in Brisbane, I'm from Tasmania. I've spent a lot of time in Sydney recently. That's where we still have some staff working out of Sydney. Brisbane is something that I'm not overly familiar with at a personal level, the high set, low set debate. Basically, I've sort of seen the commonality in being able to divide a property. If it's generally accepted in an area with high sets and it's low set, it would push it towards the poor condition. Same sort of effect as brick versus weatherboard. They're the sort of things you're looking at that would be an expectation for that suburb. If it's there or not, it definitely makes a big difference in moving the property between those conditions. Remember, this is all about assessing the condition of the property so you can find other comparables that are more like that property. So this is what we're doing this whole process for. So making sure that's the end point that we're trying to achieve. Pools, sometimes they're accepted, sometimes they're a luxury item. Heating, insulation on the flip side in cooler climates, definitely regional sensitivity. So that's all getting to know the suburb that we're actually looking at in depth before we're making the condition assessment. Key takeaways. I'm going to jump into some demonstrations to illustrate how we can find comparables in a similar condition, and then also how we can leverage and find information to use in our negotiation process to buy below market. Just in summary, this is all business as usual as part of Ripe House. Look out for the Q3 Best of the Bunch report coming out in the next 3 or 4 weeks. That's going to be a really nice roundtable, state by state, looking at each state, where it sits in the property market, which states are really performing well now, which are pushing up towards the top of the market peak and might not have as much upside. It's going to be a full roundtable. We're going to be pulling out and looking at individual regions within the top 3 states to look for the regions that are really driving those states forward. And then once we've found and identified the key regions to look at, we're going to be finding suburbs within those as well. Once we're going to be this is what we've done for the Q2 report, picking key suburbs within those regions to then perform street and property analysis on. So that'll be the full end-to-end solution in that report. So definitely look out for that. This is all part of the research that we perform at Ripe House based on our data set and our technical expertise. And this condition assessment webcast is one of our regular events that we host. So just a bit of groundwork and clarity around that. So moving through the next stage, it's really starting to look and looking at our daily process. So we've got research, we've got understanding, we've got experts that we listen to, we've got our own experience, our own comfort level. We're trying to massage that towards a daily process that is relevant to us, is achievable for us, and we're really trying to amplify that process to open ourselves up to a larger catchment area and potentially compete in the market that is going to be offering a lot of potential, and those markets generally attract other professional buyers into the market. So we're really empowering ourselves with the tools and the learning to be able to compete in those markets and avoid spinning our wheels, avoid over-analysis, analysis paralysis, sitting and then missing out on opportunity after opportunity. It's being able to arm ourselves with information to really capitalize on opportunity when we see it and define an opportunity very clearly. It's all sort of coming back to using the right tools as part of that process and understanding remote markets like a local would. So that's what Ripe House is all about. That's the core question that we're trying to answer, looking at interstate or foreign markets or unfamiliar markets, is how would a local live there? Why are they living there? What are their demand drivers, their growth drivers, the population drivers? Understanding that like a local, and then being able to roll that understanding and analyze suburbs quickly and easily remotely. That's the process. So in doing that, let's have a quick investigation in context with condition comparables in South Australia at using the Ripe House suite of tools. That is suburb search, street analysis, and property appraisal tools. I'll be using South Australia and Deveron Park as my example in the low socioeconomic price point tonight. Picked one that's got some great upside as far as sales volumes are increasing at the moment. Days on market are still high, but they are dropping. Rent per week is very high yield, very stable, very good rent per week figures, and rental volumes are stable. So it's got some great fundamentals at the moment. We're going to look at some individual properties. I'm going to find some streets with the most upside in Deveron Park to invest in for a capital growth strategy. So if we had a flipping strategy, we might be looking for owner-occupier enclaves with lots of houses with a large price differential between unrenovated and renovated. That's our requirements for a flipping strategy. If we've got a capital growth strategy, it's a different requirement. So we're looking for the areas of high rent, high incomes, high levels of tenant demand, potentially high yield in these suburbs. And we're also looking for stable markets without much public housing. So I'm going to show you how to use tools to find those streets in these suburbs that we've never been to before, and being able to buy property in these suburbs, as a professional potentially would. So we're going to be assessing fair market value for a property I will use one property as part of the case study, and I'll then talk about how we can use different information on this property to negotiate below market. So jumping in, I will switch screens now. So forgive me if there's a bit of a jump around. Now, I might just get a confirmation if people have just seen that flip now to a web page, the Ripe House website. If I'm going through things a little bit quickly, if you've got any questions, I will be doing Q&A at the end. I am on hand. I will putting an email through after the event with my mobile email, and these live chats are on the site. So we're always there for any questions and clarification, and really trying to use the tools and talk about your strategy, what you're trying to achieve, how we can, what we can do together to improve that strategy each day, and your due diligence process. And if there's any gaps in what information I'm putting across tonight, and the conversation, we're definitely on hand to fill those gaps. Yeah, I'm just going to assume everyone can see that okay. I've just jumped in here to my suburbs page. I'm just going to check I'm logged in now. It's been sitting here and I need to log in again. Okay, I'm going to the login page through the home page within Righthouse. Excuse me there. Just logging in, it's going to take me to the My Suburbs page as my default home page. So this is where I've shortlisted individual suburbs that I'm interested in at the moment. We've got quick look KPIs for these suburbs in the list. Capital growth fundamentals, flipping fundamentals, cash flow fundamentals, current sold median in the previous quarter, current yield, current crime rate. Most popular property type at the moment in the suburb is 3-bedroom houses, for example, and current days on market. We've also got some quick look information around number of dwellings, distance to CBD, public housing percentage, percentage of renters, rent income, vacancy rates. All of the key information we need, and we can monitor those on a daily basis to really see how suburbs are tracking. And this is also our shortlist, so we can definitely deep dive into each of these suburbs at any time. Yeah, Logan Central is where I focused in our webcast a couple of weeks ago. Nunda a few weeks before that. These are definitely suburbs I've been looking at. We can see days on market is lower for these suburbs, so probably further through that, moving towards the seller's market. Davron Park, as I mentioned, South Australia, high days on market, 142 at the moment. Relatively high, so it's still an acceptable sort of level. 3 to 4 months is okay around the stability and balanced supply of demand supply of the market. Still probably very firmly in the buyer's market stage with great fundamentals is Davron Park at the moment. So I'm going to click into Davron Park now, and this is assuming that we've actually done our suburb level research. So there's lots of ways we can find suburbs within Righthouse. We can actually click on the search button, and we can click capital growth as an example. I'm just doing this very quickly. We can select our buying requirements, price, area, and that's going to rank suburbs based on the metrics we've nominated, 1 to X, in our catchment area based on the growth potential, or its cash flow potential, or its flipping potential. It's going to give us a really nice short list of suburbs that we can use then to further analyse. Our ears will be pricked up and we'll be soaking in information around these suburbs. It's a really nice way to start that due diligence process. So there's some great search tools within the Righthouse suite. If I zoom out a little bit further, if a suburb's got a high capital growth score, we can also turn on the overlay here, which will show the suburb as dark blue. 82nd percentile is Davron Park. That's comparing one suburb to another in South Australia. The higher the capital growth fundamentals, the higher the percentage score. It's nice to see clusters of blue together. You can see other neighbouring suburbs with dark blue as well. They have high scores as individually, and you can click through to those suburbs as well. So it's a visual way of the same search process. Many ways of doing things, either visually or tabular. We can also click on this tab, which is going to show us the darker the orange overlay, the higher the cash flow score for the suburb. So generally the higher the yield, but it needs to have a minimum requirement around vacancy rates and rental volumes to qualify for a higher score. So very volatile mining markets with very high yields are not going to qualify very well. We like to see high yields and very high chance that we're actually going to have a tenant and not 6 months without a tenant. So all of these suburbs are really strong cluster there of deep dark orange. So lots of suburbs together with very high yield fundamentals. So another secondary way of finding suburbs that way. We do have other research in part of the Learning Centre, so price per kilometre research where you can find dead spots in price, ugly duckling or price depression areas. That's that research there within the Learning Centre, so that's another way of finding and shortlisting suburbs. So also information, these webcast sessions, and then third-party information from Terry Ryder and hotspotting.com.au is very detailed, in-depth 10-page per suburb type analysis of these areas to really sort of tick that last tick that last box of due diligence. So a couple of you have just mentioned that there's been no sound and the visual has switched off, and I think that might have been when I changed screen. So just refresh if you still can't see the map-based analysis screen there. click refresh on your browser, and that will potentially log you back in again, and that might solve that problem. Okay, so Deveron Park is a suburb that we've come to from Terry's recommendation, high capital growth score from my own research before tonight. We are trying to find areas that are going to have the most potential for capital growth in the suburb, and then we're going to be looking at individual properties and assess the condition and find comparables for those properties, and then assess fair market value. And then I'm going to show you information to negotiate under market. So I'd just like to get a bit of familiarisation with the suburb first. We've got a lot of content, a lot of function on this page. I won't go into all of it tonight. We can view all the current for lease properties in the suburb, all the details and the location. All sold properties that have been sold in the suburb for the last year can be displayed on the map very quickly, and you can view the details there. I'm firstly going to click on the View Suburb Report button. We've got lots of tabs of information there, but I'm just going to do two things. I'm going to look, 3-bedroom houses are most in demand at the moment, so that's really what we're trying to invest in. And I'm looking at the for sale pricing. So we've gone up 10K in the last quarter, 6% rise, $20 per week increase in rent in the last quarter, which is huge. People are obviously demanding to pay more to rent in the suburb. Prices are generally linked to rental increases. So really nice fundamentals there. Days on market is slightly decreasing, so it's tightening. Sold volume is increasing, so that's a very nice sign there that capital growth is imminent. Sales volumes are increasing, days on market are stable, rental per week is increasing. So amazing, really nice fundamentals. 7.3% yield is excellent. Really nice fundamentals from Deveron Park. If we wanted to just have a bit of a check and balance around how the suburb has scored in terms of the three strategies, 82nd percentile for capital growth, 92nd percentile for cash flow. All of these same numbers are here in a different format that might be a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so 54 properties currently on the market. Ripehouse tracks all the different property sources information as, say, Google would. As a search engine, it displays those back to you. So we've got 54 currently for sale properties in Deveron Park across all the different websites has been brought together. We can track days on market for each of these properties. Has the property been discounted as part of its sales campaign? So you can see this one's actually been discounted 7%. You can view that full listing history for that property. Has it been discounted once, twice? When were the dates? And we can really use that information to negotiate hard with. We can sort these properties by discount amount, days on market and price. And we can also filter them based on location and specifics of the property, which I'll show you in a moment. So all I'm really demonstrating now is 54 properties on market. The current quartile pricing for all properties is 149 to 222,000. That generally relates to our poor to good condition for all properties in the suburb. Okay, so just remember that. Firstly, I just want to try and work out where I'd like to invest in Deveron Park. All streets are not created equal. There's going to be some streets that are absolute dead patches and some streets that are leading the suburb forward. Generally, for a capital growth strategy, and there's a lot more detail to go in here, I am just giving a very high level. Capital growth, lower risk capital growth to really leverage the upside in the suburb. I tend to look for areas that don't have huge percentages of public housing. Public housing generally has lower street appeal, patchy tenancies. You've got tenancy problems, but you might not have the opportunity to increase rents and property values in line with the suburb if that is a dead patch overall. So generally for a capital growth strategy for these type of suburbs, I like to see streets that don't have a huge amount of public housing. So Ripehouse is all about streets. You can click on the public housing overlay here and you can see exactly where the public housing is. So each of these funny shaped areas here relates to 200 dwellings. The larger the area, the less dense the dwellings. And you can see the darker the red colour, the higher the level of public housing. 23% public housing on average. If you click on any of these areas, it will display the information for that area. 46% public housing in this dark red area here. This area next door only has 2.6. So very, very different types of property in this area. So I'll look in this suburb, I'll be looking anywhere that's lightly shaded in red. Probably 10 or 12% public housing would be my limit. That's very subjective, and there's a lot of detail which I can go into in one-on-one conversations around what level of public housing is acceptable, how it might affect capital growth, and how that differs per suburb. So that's a subjective conversation we can have. Occupancy type, I like to see where there's strong levels of tenancies. If you're going to be the only tenant in the street, or your tenant's going to be the only tenant in the street, they might not be demanding that street to live as a tenant. They might be demanding down the other end of the suburb near the shopping centre. So you might be left with an ugly duckling property that's not going to be, it's going to have difficulty in obtaining tenants going forward. So I like to look for suburbs that are either have slightly more or slightly less than the average number of tenants in the suburb, and probably not down below 25% tenants. That's probably the minimum, 25% or more. 51% tenants overall in the suburb, and anything in the yellow is above that, anything in the green is below that, anything that is lightly shaded is close to average. So I'm liking these two zones here that are lightly shaded. We know that they're going to be pretty close to 50% rental density. Anything in the dark green or anything in the dark yellow is probably too far either side. So what I'm trying to do at the moment, I'm just trying to put the areas through a bit of a net. I'm looking for areas of lowest public housing, as I say, close to the average in occupancy. And my eye has been drawn definitely towards these two zones here, close to the train station here, which have low public housing and around the average number of tenants. We know that 3-bedroom houses are most in demand. 3-bedroom houses are located in any of the green areas. The darker the green, the more houses. The darker the yellow, the more units. Let's look for green areas. Let's look for areas that are lightly shaded. So once again, these two fit the bill. Any of the other green areas would work on this metric alone. But having said that, these two areas have fallen through our net in this toggle as well. The sold price we can view, rent per week. Anything in purple is above average rent per week at a street level. So I'm looking once again for purple areas. These two zones have fallen through our net again. So they're definitely in my eye for high capital growth potential. High incomes to support the high rents. I like rents to be a smaller percentage of the disposable income of the household. Once again, those two areas definitely fall through this net. Looking very good. And high yield, so higher than average yield. We know 7.2% is the average in the suburb. Anything shaded in yellow has actually higher than average yield. So 8.2% yield in this particular quadrant here, 7.9% here. So excellent fundamentals in these two zones alone. So look, we could go in a lot of different directions here. We can actually digest all of this into individual strategy overlays. So that would, it's basically our cheat sheet. We can see exactly where amenities are in the suburb. Key amenities are transport, shopping, and schools. They're the big three as far as effect on property values. And we can also filter properties based on their location in these different areas. So yeah, for the purposes of this case study, I'm definitely drawn towards these two areas of high rent here in the southeast of the suburb. We can filter properties based on their location. I think probably the best way to filter properties in this particular example is firstly looking for 3 or 4 bedroom houses, remembering our quartile pricing. Lots of different toggles here. We can set maximum levels of acceptable public housing, rental density, price ranges, whether the property is located in each of these individual strategy areas. What goes into my thoughts and what we've sort of shown as far as research is best for each of these strategies is described here. So if you're a little bit unsure, you can also click on any of the red question marks across the page and view help around that information. And once you've got this as a toggle, you can actually save it, and that will automatically be applied next time you load the suburb up. So once we've identified areas and properties that we're really focused on, we can filter down 54 properties down to 5 or 6 properties very quickly, and then we can very quickly turn that filter back on again next time we look at the suburb. So our daily due diligence process is fine-tuned towards the absolute upside and most potential in the suburb. All I've done now is 3 and 4 bedroom houses. We're down to 43 in the suburb. So I'm just now going to actually draw a box over the suburb and remove properties out of the area that we're not interested in. Sorry, just excuse me in doing this. Yeah, so I'm actually going to be drawing 2 boxes. Depending on the type of area that we're talking about, we can actually just sort based on are they sitting in the area or not. And there's lots of different ways we can filter property. So it's about using the individual tools to get the filters that we're looking for is the process. So I'm just going to do another box here. We can actually click on individual icons and remove them if we'd like. Each icon obviously relates to an individual property that's currently on the market. The darker the icon, the higher the price of the property, and the white icons are actually price withheld property. So you can actually see patches of dark icons together, and you can see that might be a more expensive area of the suburb. We do have algorithms here and a toggle that will show you the more expensive blue chip areas of a suburb, the areas that are actually increasing in price faster than anywhere else. That's all available there. But basically now I've got filtered this down to 18 properties in the suburb. This is really what we're focusing on in this area. And the really important consideration now for 3 and 4 bedroom houses in these 2 areas in the suburb, our new quartile pricing is 232 to 259. So that is what we're assessing value on now. Our range has tightened. Our price points moved up towards the top end of the suburb because it probably is the blue or chip area. And we've also got a defined range for rent per week. So we've got 18 properties on the market. We can probably go through each individually. We can order them based on discounting amount, price, or days on market. There's one here that's been discounted 6%. That's as good a starting place as any. This is where our experience in assessing condition of the property really comes in handy. So you might be really trying to find a property that has nothing to do, turnkey, get a tenant, let's get some yield. You might have a property you're trying to do a renovation, increase your equity in the property artificially through that renovation, then lease out. So based on the condition, you're trying to assess the condition and also match it against your requirements. But definitely tidy, street appeal. This type of service is actually probably a store garage, very nicely presented inside with neutral paint and nice flooding floorboards. New spec kitchen. Nicely presented bathroom, reasonably dated bathroom, but nicely presented and tidy, and very tidy bedroom. So definitely in good condition would be my assessment compared to this suburb. The Ripe House algorithm actually automatically assesses condition of properties that are on the market and all comparables. So it's basically saving you a lot of time in finding comparables that are a similar condition. So it's going to shortlist those comparables in a similar condition, and you're going to be able to filter those through. We can disagree with what the engine has recommended. It's 50% sure it's in good condition, this property, and we are agreeing with that, so we're just going to leave that. We can see the full listing history. So it came on the market in April for 235, 220. It's been revised in May. We can really use that information to negotiate hard. We can ask questions around why has it been discounted? Has it been discounted? When it came on the market, we know all the facts here, and we can leverage and put the agent into a difficult position, answer difficult questions, and really push those avenues to leverage that information to buy below market. So definitely we've seen public housing, something we can use in our favour. We've found listing history and discounting, and obviously the vendor might be starting to get into giving off distress signals that we can definitely capitalise on. We know that the suburb fundamentals here, the area fundamentals, we've done our analysis. We've really taken the time to do that, but that's all mirrored there. I won't go into this strategy toggle here, but I'm just skipping straight through to the comparables tab. So this is actually going away. It's looking at properties that are most likely very, very strongly preferred properties that are sold in the last 3 months. It's looking for properties in a similar condition, and it's just thinking about this because I'm sharing my connection with the webcast tonight. So it's just still coming through. Sometimes it takes a little while because it's doing a lot of thinking. It's going through a lot of sold comparables. It's finding properties that are in a similar condition. It's doing that assessment. So I'm just going to have to reload that. I'm apologising. I do apologise. And yeah, for each comparable that comes back, it's actually given to us in order. Distance-wise, 3-bedroom houses, recency of sale, and condition of property are all very important things that are looked at when finding these comparables. When you're looking at an RP data report that's coming back, it's generally, comparables. You can't really assess condition very easily. You don't know if it is an actual valid comparable or not. Ripe House is all about giving you the power to actually formulate these comparables. And so I'm just going to have to refresh this screen here because I'm having problems with the webcast. One moment. Okay. Sorry about this, everybody. I'm aware of time, so I do apologise. Yeah, Ripe House is all about giving you power and owning the process of knowing and assessing condition of property, and then also knowing and assessing condition of comparables. If you disagree with a comparable that's been returned by the engine, you can remove that and you can replace it with the next likely comparable. So you're really curating that list very accurately. You're very confident of the price base fair market value of that property because you've owned that process. You haven't got a report back that sort of gives you 6 properties picked at random that might be very likely or similar to as far as the property is concerned, but it's left on an island. You can't assess that and you can't actually digest those comparables. So just I'm about to switch back onto the page there once things are loaded up with the shared connection here. One moment, but yes, I'm definitely going to be illustrating the process of how we find and assess these comparables. So one moment. Guys, I really do apologise about this. Just with sharing the connection and loading the actual website in tandem with broadcasting this. I'm getting Isabel here to help me with getting this loaded so we can switch back once ready. At the moment, I'm just going to switch back onto the slides. Yeah, let me know if you can see that okay, if you can't. And I'm going to continue trying to get the computer and webcast functioning again. So I do apologise. What that process is going to illustrate, and I will definitely make sure that's forwarded through as part of the recording and pack afterwards, is it returns back a list very easily for the individual property on the market, and those comparables are ordered. So you're going through and you're curating that list. You're assessing the condition of these individual comparables. You're making sure they are relevant. When you've made sure those comparables are relevant, it's taking the top 6 comparables that are found that are most likely to be comparables, and it's averaging the price to form an appraised value for those. It's taking that average price through, it's then running that appraised value through a series of gates. So how far is that property to the closest school, shopping and transport and public housing concentrations? One piece of information I didn't take you through tonight, I assumed knowledge, was how proximity to amenities and public housing affects the appraised value of properties. In some cases, it's up to 20% positive or negative, based on the location of that property. So it will take you through that comparable. It will also show you how that comparable is then, the appraised value of the property is affected by what is around it, and it very accurately shows that relationship. All of that information is then bundled together and you can print that off in a report format, and then you can take that report to Open Home, or you can sit it on file and you can use that to refer against. So we're looking at comparables. Is the agent using comparables that you agree with? Is it using a comparable that is in a higher condition, a better condition? And if so, are they artificially inflating the asking price because that property comparable is not correct? So you've got that information that you've done your process, you've curated that list of comparables and you're very happy and confident with them. You can catch that agent out and you can question those comparables and you can push that conversation to a point where you can negotiate in a more effective manner with the agent and the vendor to secure that property for below average. You can talk about the public housing in the street, for good or for bad. You can talk about your concerns about the property value because of that public housing, and you can also see the individual listing history for that property. Has it been discounted, by how much and when? Very important when negotiating and positioning, putting the agent and vendor in a position of weakness and vulnerability. You've got more likelihood of the agent and vendor listening to you when you highlight these problems or information in these buyers markets. So that's why I've used South Australia as a case in point tonight. You are definitely more likely to be able to secure under market in these buyers markets, and using this information we've covered. Moving forward, Yeah, I suppose the third component is, the learning and research. Secondary is the tools and the daily due diligence process, and really leveraging information in that process to compete as a local would, with a local mindset in these remote markets with professionals. Doing that, you need to have a support network around you. So you need to nurture the tools and the research and be part of a community where you can do that. So as part of the Ripe House community, we have our property partner groups. They're mastermind sessions. So we peer you up into groups of 5, moderated by myself and staff, to focus a conversation on and group conversation, private conversation on individual strategies and moving towards those strategies and really achieving. And also obviously using the Ripe House learning and tools to do that. So it's processing, FAQs and help and support all mixed into one. That's our property partner group. So that is part of our community. We find that the members who are getting involved in these groups, we do have private conversation, ongoing conversation, Q&A as a repository of information for that group. We have fortnightly group hosted webcast sessions, Skype sessions, where we're talking and individual question and answers. Individual investors are really talking about what they're trying to achieve in the next 2 weeks, and that's held accountable. So we find great accountability with each other in these groups. We find people learning and sharing resources and information. We find that excellent for supporting and advisement with more senior members of the group. And we'll encourage each person to think bigger and dream. It's really motivating ourselves to deliver on our strategy, delivery on our lifestyle and our retirements. That's what it's all about. So that's the third component of the Ripe House community. We definitely see as 3 distinct elements that need to support together: the research, the tools, and the property partner groups, the nurturing aspect. It definitely needs to be all of those combined to allow us to open ourselves up to the largest catchment area possible across the nation with absolute upside for our strategies. The highest capital growth suburbs with the excellent yield, and being able to invest in these and dissect them as a local would, being able to talk to other investors and us here as staff to have the right advice at the right time, to act with certainty and to avoid spinning our wheels, analysis paralysis. So that's what it's all about. Some recent feedback from some community members. I know time's a little bit of an issue here. So Andrew recently purchased in Cairns. Great capital growth fundamentals up there, great yields. Donna and Cassandra were talking about our new features. We released our toggles around capital growth, flipping and cash flow around 6 weeks ago. And Tina has performing a flipping strategy in Chermside, northern quadrant of Brisbane. I'm getting some updates from Tina and images coming through very shortly, so I'll update those. All some great feedback from the community members in the last few months. Yeah, Ripe House is a subscription service, so generally $7.97 per year. Annual subscriptions involve the 3 core elements. So early access and sneak peek information and one-on-one support with the learnings. Live support integrated into the page where you can ask questions at any time with our investor customer support. That comes through to me. I'm on hand and make myself very available to answer questions and help one-on-one. Empowering with the tools, 24/7 access across every suburb in Australia, cutting-edge tools to find suburbs, to assess streets, to become local experts in these suburbs and to appraise properties individually, and then access to these property partner groups, which are a great way of masterminding together to achieve our goals. So it's unlimited access to that for a year for $7.97. To thank you for joining us tonight, I'd love to extend an offer with a $200 discount if you take that up within the next hour. That is, as a thank you for attending and demonstrating, your involvement in processing the research. I've just selected and switched on the offer. You are able to lock that in for the next hour at that price with a $200 discount, and that offer also enables you to have one-on-one coaching with me personally. So in your involvement, an ongoing involvement with Ripe House, I stand by your side very closely in helping you use the tools, also looking at what you're trying to achieve in your strategy at a personal level and making sure you deliver on that. So as part of the discounted offer tonight for the next hour, for coming and thanking you for being a part of the webcast, I'm opening my own time up, one-on-one coaching for the next hour only. That helps you at the suburb search level, the street analysis, property filtering. I'll go through condition assessment and really talk through in more detail about that. We'll find comparables, we'll appraise those comparables, we'll get really good at that process, assessing fair market value. And then I'm going to be talking and get it down to an individual property level in our first Skype session as part of that one-on-one coaching. And we're going to be looking at agents how we can use information as power and negotiate with that agent per property. So we'll get a short list of properties, and I'm there on the phone and email support once you're talking with the agent, once you're negotiating, how we can negotiate, how we can use more information, what offer is our minimum, maximum, and really push that forward. And so I'm on hand for that support end-to-end for that first purchase using the software. After that first purchase, it falls back into the property power groups, which are an amazing research and networking tool. So yeah, just covering off, it's tax time. Ripe House is an education and functional element of your property investing income producing facet of your tax. It's fully tax deductible if you can show the relationship to taxable income, i.e. rent. So that's subject to your personal financial situation. Just a note there to mention that financial year is coming up and that offer and price is tax deductible in many cases. We have a huge focus on improving the product and moving forward to be more enriching, more useful for individual investors. We've been spending a lot of time in R&D recently on implementing flood zones into our maps, so you can see where they are and see how property is affected based on its location in those flood zones. We're looking at implementing and spending time and money on research for finding spittable blocks, so subdivision potential, finding those blocks very easily and highlighting those to you across Australia in a shortlist format, and then custom area toggles. So more functionality side there, configuring different toggles to be exactly towards your need and then only showing properties in those very easily. We're spending time at the moment on upgrading our servers just to make things and make sure that they are completely robust moving forward to cater with those extra R&D and functions. And always improving our customer support. So based on those, moving forward, we are increasing pricing come 1st of July. Limited time now to lock in the webcast special offer, and prices will be moving going into that period. So just a shout out to, I know Jane Stack-Smith membership as part of your membership with Jane and access to the tool. The prices, this is the current 2015 financial year prices, which is soon to expire. And this is definitely one of the last opportunities to access that pricing before they do increase and your access does expire. So just FYI, you know, $5.97 does provide that support and membership. You know, it might not be for you. It might be a buyer's agent. You know, you're very time poor. You don't really want to engage in that process of learning and understanding these remote suburb markets. You know, buyer's agents typically $10,000 fee, one-off fee. You might not learn much from that process. I generally of the movement where let's improve our understanding, our knowledge, our rinse repeat, so we can do this process over and over again, more effective each and every time, and improve that. And that's what this membership is all about for a year to help us do that together. Moving forward, I know I've covered a lot tonight, and I do apologise. As a further incentive and discount, as part of the offer, I'd love to offer you a free hotspotting.com.au report valued at $77. That's as part of the 1 hour special, and thank you for coming along tonight. Look, I really respect and value the research that Terry does at hotspotting.com.au. I think it's a great starting point to have a short list of suburbs to understand the regions across Australia that are really moving forward and to have that information and confidence in that. It's a great starting point to start your research and further due diligence with Ripe House. So definitely within the next hour, I'm offering that free report as part of your membership as an extra that I think is very relevant. So I'm on hand now for any questions. I am aware of time, so I won't go through in too much bogged down. Jump in. I'll hold on the line. I've had a few of you come through with questions relating to functionality of the webcast. I really do apologise about the intermittent in display and pixelation tonight, and also the inability to switch in and out of the comparable analysis that we're doing due to the webcast software. So I do apologise about that. If you've got any questions, jump in now. I'll hold on the line. I'll mute my mic. I'll come back in and out when there are questions put up. I'm on hand via email and chat support within the site at any time, and I'll be emailing through my mobile phone. So their offer is still available, and you're also able to, I'll be sending through a link to lock that offer in via email, so that should be arriving in your mailboxes any moment, which is then the second way to be able to lock that in. I'll just put the mute on now and on standby for any questions. But thank you very much for your time tonight. I love talking about property. I really appreciate you taking the time to learn and grow together. So thank you. I might just say hello to a few of you. One question in particular from Jane Slack-Smith student. So we also have a great working relationship with Jane Slack-Smith as part of her Ultimate Guide to Renovation courses. Amazing resources around educating yourself about how to find, secure, buy and renovate to improve property with the eye on selling that property for profit. Amazing content. Jane is absolutely excellent at what she does. As part of her courses, her students actually have access to a version of Ripehouse that we have customized to Jane. Yeah, that functionality that has been opened up to those students with that relationship with Jane is an abbreviated version of the software, perfectly matched to what you are required to fulfill and do as part of her course. What I've talked about tonight and demonstrated is the full paid annual subscription to Ripehouse. So we haven't tried to confuse the product and add the extra features in there that are not needed for your course. To lock the access to the full subscription in at the price this financial year and this webcast offer, that will enable you to have that ongoing once your 3-month access expires, and that will then be ongoing for the full access for the next year. So I'm definitely on hand for any questions around the differences in functionality. It basically stops with the property, so you can see the different areas within the suburb, and you can do that analysis. You can't really, in your particular version of the software with Jane's course, you can't see how that relates to a strategy, and you can't then appraise property and find comparables and see how that appraised value is affected by its location. So it's getting you really at that point to really understand the suburb like a local, not necessarily put it in context with the property. So just quickly answering your question there in regards to that course and the differences in the functionality and the ability to purchase the full subscription for the annual subscription tonight for that discounted price. Yeah, any more questions? So I'll just pop it back on pause again there. I might take the questions offline for everyone. Once again, thank you so much for your attendance. I really appreciate you taking the time out tonight, and welcome to Business as Usual with Ripe House webcasts, and always on hand for any questions at any time. So I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.